we'll give a couple of minutes just for people to dial in. Just kick off at 10.
You need us to speak to see if it works.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yep.
Everyone would love that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Without saying anything in particular, of course.
Give your names and I schedule.
Ross Taylor, CEO of Fletcher Building.
And Graham Stevens, CEO of Sky City.
Long night for you guys?
It has been,
Yes.
no, long night. Ross's team working through it. So, and I think a long night to come. Yeah. So whoever's just joined, if you don't mind going on mute.
Follow your own instructions.
Yeah. It's a long 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think we can get going. So firstly, thanks for coming. It's obviously a very significant event for us and for the city and for the country. My apologies up front for no direct engagement up until this point in time. I know a lot of you have been reaching out for interviews and for comment, and for good reason. We haven't really had the time for that until now. We're in the middle of dealing with the crisis. But my apologies for the lack of direct interaction. The comms teams have been pushing out, as you would have received, updates on a fairly regular basis, and we'll continue to do that, I guess, on both sides.
South Africa. I don't know who's speaking.
Sorry, it's Graham Stevens at Sky City. If you don't mind going on mute, thanks. So apologies for the lack of direct interaction. We'll continue to provide the updates. We'd like to have a hard
It's really irritating to have all these people continuously joining. Maybe you could wait a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Is it possible to mute that?
That
So
beep?
everybody's audio,
I don't know how to be honest.
Probably it's the beep when... Oh, that's right. Yeah, we just... yeah, that's true.
There you go.
Okay. Right, we've got a technician in the room. Turn the volume down. Okay. Look, we wanted to get to a reasonably hard stop around about 10:30, providing for some Q&A. We need to get our attentions back to what's actually happening on the ground, but obviously recognised, given the significance of the event, that we should try and give you some first-hand update. And it goes without saying that this has been absolutely devastating for us at Sky City, for Fletcher, and for a lot of people in this community. We have worked incredibly hard to get to where we were only yesterday morning. I was up really early yesterday with my hard hat on with Peter Reedy from Fletcher's and the wider Fletcher team on a site inspection. And I have to say it was the most constructive and exciting visit I've had. You could just see everything coming together. We were literally signing off hotel rooms, and you could see the internal shape of the convention centre. The seats were pretty much going into the arena. And I left the site very buoyed and very excited, and literally 2 to 3 hours later got the message that there was a fire. Now, obviously, you hear fire and you think something different to what I saw. And what I saw has only gone from there to what it is still today, raging. So really devastating circumstances in an environment which up until then was looking really positive for delivery during next year, as we guided at our AGM last Friday, with the full expectation of meeting the conferences held that were scheduled to be held early 2021. I'd like to say up front the obvious thank you to the police, fire, emergency services. They're still out there. They've been out there for over 20 hours at this stage, bolstered by people from Hamilton driving through. They fought through that night. You heard the wind, I'm sure, the rain not really helping with the fire, and the wind certainly not helping either. So they're out there still, and a very heartfelt thanks to the immense effort that they've put into to fighting this fire, and it looks like they will have a number of hours ahead of them through into the night, would be my guess, to fully contain it. I'd also like to thank my executive team and staff. We have a crisis management plan. We rehearse like everyone should, and I assume does. You hope never to have to implement those plans, but obviously we have. We have our crisis plans fully activated. The team has stepped up unbelievably, and the team from top to very bottom, to see the people pitching in from all aspects of our business, with health and safety first and foremost at the top of all of our minds. To see them there all the way through until late last night, making sure that our employees and our customers had been evacuated safely. We fortunately took an early and at the time maybe conservative decision during the afternoon to start an evacuation process and close down the casino, close down and evacuate the Sky Tower, close down our restaurants, and to start finding alternate accommodation for our customers in our hotels. So we could manage the process over a number of hours without it ever becoming a crisis situation in the minds of the people we were dealing with. But there was a lot of work happening behind the scenes to achieve that. So a huge thank you to my staff. And that's a process still underway, obviously. Very thankfully, we're not talking about human loss at this point. I looked into that burning building, thought, imagine if there were people inside there, and fortunately there were none. This is a discussion around buildings and money and time, but not around people. And our objective is to keep it exactly that way. First and foremost, health and safety. And let's just hope that we finish where we are today with no human loss. I'd like to acknowledge our customers. We host people with their leisure time and with their very special business time, and we were full yesterday, full hotels, full restaurants, full conferences, and for all the people we had to evacuate, there was a clear understanding of the need for it. There were people still at about 7:30 last night trying to find alternate accommodation, and I'd like to thank them for that understanding, and hopefully we can make it up to them on another day. And on that note, I'd also like to just thank the hospitality industry, the wider hotel community around us, who really came to our assistance, and between us and trying to find accommodation as well as transport to go with it. The city was congested. I think we managed to solve it in the best possible way, and we'll be turning to that community again, the hotel community, to help us out tonight, because we don't expect our hotels to be open again tonight. So thanks to them. And to the wider Auckland community, the number of messages I've received from individuals, from fellow chief executives and other corporates offering to help wherever possible. I really would like to acknowledge that. It's been a massive community message of support, and much appreciated. At the moment in time we're in, not much anyone can do other than the people who are directly involved. But to me it sends a message of how important this project is to Auckland and to the country. and that same community who's trying to support us now, will be the reason we manage to rebuild and open successfully in the future, and we will. And that community support will be with us on the positive as it has been on the negative. So thank you to the wider Auckland community. We're clearly working very closely with Fletchers to manage this immediate situation with health and safety our priority. The damage, stating the obvious, is significant. The fire is still, and again, stating the obvious, that will lead to a material delay. We don't know what that delay is yet, and we'll only be able to assess it when everything is under control and it's safe to go back on there. We'll be working with Fletchers to recalibrate expectations once we know really the full impact, and only at that point can we start to liaise with the conference bookings which are in place from March of 2021. So we'll be able to better manage that situation when we've got more detail. At this stage in the near term, we expect to reopen tomorrow the rest of our precinct. We are hopeful that the fire will be contained by tonight. We then need to get in and clear the smoke out of our buildings, tidy up, and hopefully are able to reopen and host people back on site from tomorrow. And we'll just be updating people as and when information comes to hand. And in closing, just to reiterate that our vision is unchanged. This was going to be and will still be a really iconic destination for Auckland in the convention and exhibition space, the entertainment space. It was an amazingly iconic building yesterday, and it will be again. And our vision.
There's two people talking.
Our vision is absolutely unchanged on that, and I think you'll hear from Ross that it's a joint intent to resurrect it. Get Phoenix out of the ashes and open successfully at some point in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. It's Ross Taylor here. Can everyone on the phone just mute, because we actually can hear background conversations? There's still someone unmuted there. Can we just get people to mute? Thanks. Look, I'd like to start by just echoing Graham's comments on the impact we've had, sympathies on the impacts we've had on Sky, as well as the Auckland CBD. Has our sympathies, and we're very sorry that occurred. I guess when we heard the fire started, the first reaction I had, or the board had, was just on the safety of our people. And as Graham alluded to with crisis management, you run fire drills on these big projects as a matter of course, as you do in buildings, and you never want to use them, but when they work and they work well, and we had the building the site evacuated quickly, very effectively, and it worked well, and we avoided as Graham said, any harm or loss of life, and we're able to account for everyone, and that's a result of the protocols we have on the site and getting people off site. So we were very comfortable quite quickly that we'd managed that evacuation, which is both important for us and also how the fire and emergency services respond. Our focus then moves very quickly in supporting the work that the emergency services have been doing around the site. We have been doing that, and we continue to do that as they work there, and that's supporting them with logistics, understanding the building, giving them the technical data on what's burning, so they just can understand what they're dealing with and how to fight the fire. They're doing a great job. They've worked, a lot of them they're working, and I just really want to, from Fletcher Building's perspective and my personal perspective, thank them very much for what they're doing and continue to do on the site. We're also, as we look at it, you basically had a site in full swing as of yesterday, as Graham mentioned, and so you basically have a lot of affected people, our own project management staff, our on-site staff, as well as a very large group of subcontractors. We've made sure, these things, they're emotionally connected with the result. They've also got some valuables and car keys and things on the site. They had to evacuate quickly. So we've made sure we've stood up support lines and support functions for them. So to the extent they've got any issues, we're making sure they're supported and there's dial-in numbers for them to do that. We equally have made sure that they're all being paid. So while we work through this, there's no issues in terms of whether or not they're working, that everybody's being paid. As we just look what next, I mean, as Graham mentioned, we're hopeful that the fire is under control sometime today. So then what do we do next? There's three things. There's going to be an investigation to get to the facts of what's occurred up there. I mean, there's lots of speculation, but in these instances, I've found you actually do need to take the time to get to the facts, because speculation can take you in the wrong direction. So we're working with the investigation teams, both fire and then ultimately WorkSafe. Well, obviously then, once we get access back to the site, there's, as Graham alluded, significant damage, and what you'll see is a lot of structural components and other things will be either steel will be heat damage, there'll be elements that might be precariously hanging that haven't quite unstable. So there'll be a piece of work we have to do to assess the safety and the state of the site before we get back in there. We'll have to do that very thoughtfully and carefully, and there's ways and protocols of doing that, but we won't really start thinking too much beyond what next until we understand the issues we're dealing with on the site. And then there's a piece of work, once we've done that, of making the site safe. So I imagine there's a period which might be frustrating for everyone, where we work through the investigation, understanding the safety state of the site, and then making the site safe before we can actually then get into working out where we go next. I guess the emotions we're feeling, it's the only way I could describe it, as incredible disappointment. And I'll go to where Graham sort of talked about, a day can be a long time. It was only yesterday, you could see the momentum we had on the site. You could see, when we were going to finish, how it was going, and it's just very disappointing for a Fletcher building as well as Sky and the teams particularly. It's quite palpable. I was up addressing the site team this morning, and they're very invested in what we're doing there, and so there's a lot of emotion that's there around, and very understandably from my perspective. That said, we understand that this is a very important project for Sky. It's a very important project for Auckland, and a very important project for New Zealand. And one thing we are, Fletcher Building, is resolute. We will get this project finished. We'll get it finished to the quality and the spec that we want, and make sure it's the iconic building and the very important piece of infrastructure that Auckland needs and New Zealand needs. So we remain very committed to doing that. Look, I'll end there. We'll open it up to Q&A. Just as a bit of housekeeping, it's going to be difficult to take questions from the phone. So what we're looking for there is, if you've got any questions, just ring into our respective comms teams and we'll deal with them that way. But now I'll open it up for questions from the floor.
For both of you, do you have any estimate of the economic impact going ahead?
Look, virtually impossible to estimate at this stage. We need to understand how long there's an economic impact, obviously, in building it, and then an economic impact of delay, and we don't have a feel for either of those at this stage.
What about even shutting down the guest nights, though? How the restaurants shutting down for Sky City, all of that, what does that mean for you?
Well, there's clearly a loss to have it closed down, and let me note, it's the first time in the company's history that we would have had everything shut. It was a really weird time to be on property without a single customer in any restaurant or hotel. Now, there will be an impact from that. We're trying to contain the period of closure to obviously yesterday, today, but hopefully tomorrow we hope to be able to reopen, hopefully from the afternoon on, and that's really a function of clearing the smoke up.
Do you have insurance systems in place to hedge some of those losses?
Yeah, we have insurance policies, and that would extend obviously to the project itself. So yes, the policies have been taken out by Sky City, and they're robust policies and with credible insurers. So I don't think at this stage we have any cause for concern on that.
Ross, will there be penalty payments for late delivery of the sector?
So as Graham mentioned, I mean, there's project works insurance and public liability insurance in place, which is project insurance, which we both are party to. And then I don't talk beyond that on any project. So the projects are insured, and we put out a stock exchange announcement to that effect this morning.
So you can't rule out that you'll be starting payments for late delivery?
As I've said many times, I don't ever talk about individual projects across the portfolio. So I've got no response to that.
Who does suit Fletchers?
If I look at Fletcher's overall, it's in a very, very strong position. I mean, we talked about that through our results. Our net debt at the end of the financial year was around $300 million. So we're in a very, very strong position. So that's not an issue. And also, I point back again that the project is insured with both project works insurance and public liability insurance.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but do you look at that building and think to yourself, you wish you'd never got involved with it?
Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it's a luxury. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Fletcher's is committed to get the project finished, and we will.
What fire prevention measures were in place during construction?
So when you build a building like that, the way it works, and we were completely compliant with that, you progressively finish the building. So if you go right at the bottom, the parts were handed over, so that had full fire sprinkler and complete compliance and fire suppression. Then as you're building a building, what you do is you've got to keep the fire risers or the hydrants a couple of floors below your active thing. So there's a requirement that as you go up, you've got active water available for firefighting. What you then do is in any work area, you need two areas of egress, and then what you then put around the site is a lot of fire extinguishers and fire suppression, because you don't have active sprinkler systems in the building. And then when you're doing hot works and works like what was active, you have hot work permits, so you formally control it. So that's sort of the environment that we had, and we actually audit that and make sure that's all in place, and it is and was. Then you get into, well, how did it start? And that's speculation, and we have to do the investigation. We just don't know at this point.
What was the first person to spot it?
One of the foremen, I don't know the exact, they were walking down the stairs and just saw it burning and then notified it, and that's when we triggered I don't know the name of the person, and it wasn't one of the workers, one of our supervisors, as I understand.
So it's not like an alarm goes off or anything like that. It was physically spotted. That's how you became aware.
That's absolutely right. There is no alarm system in an active construction site at those levels. It's not required, but you've got to therefore have the supervision and the controls around that, so you do see them. And look, the fire started, which is a problem, but when you look at it, it was spotted and it was evacuated, and all those protocols worked well, albeit you don't want to have to use them if you don't.
How long did it take to evacuate the site? Can you give us
It was about 20 minutes, I think.
With this level of damage, is it likely that you're facing a full demolition?
We can't speculate on that now. The answer, my reaction is no. Where the fire is, it's above level 5. It depends. Assuming we get it under control, it's broadly above level 5. So structural damage is going to be above that level, and to possibly the perimeter. We just don't know until we get up there. But then the other damage is water damage, because obviously there's been a flood of water through the building, so that'll obviously have an impact through services as well as finishes. So
the materials that were being used on the roof, are they standard? Is that was often used in projects like this, or was it something new? Or
no, it's very commonly used, and Spark City Arena has the same roof, for instance.
Can you talk us through the likelihood of how long the delays will be? You said about obviously investigation needs to go on. How long does that take, and then how long before you can get back building?
I don't know. I can't quantify it. I can only talk about the process of getting back in, and until we get back in, I don't know, because you can imagine we can't quantify from the outside just what the extent of the damage is.
And then I guess you've already heard me saying that APEC 2021 will have to be moved. So you're thinking that you're not going to be open in 2021. When do you think it'll be open?
So my reaction to that is we don't know. We understand the importance of APEC to New Zealand, to Sky, to Auckland. So we get that, but I don't know. It'll be a material delay. What those impacts look like, we've got to do the assessment. Then we've got to work with Sky, and that'll be a piece of work we have to do together to work out how all that's going to come together.
How well are you working together? You've had a testy relationship for some time now. How's it going today?
Should I answer that, Nana? Look, I opened with the reference to my site visit yesterday morning. That was me, Peter Reedy, who's in charge of the construction side, with his wider team, my wider team. And I would characterise that as an extremely constructive, and not the first extremely constructive engagement. We're working well together. There's no doubt that both entities want to finish, and we're very focused on finishing during the middle of next year, July, August. This was I hope to get the heavy lifting done, allowing some time for audio visual and a few other things to complete. So very constructive engagement, and just devastating for both teams.
could you have evacuated people quicker? We understand there were still some people in the casino on the gaming floor at about 5:45, so 4 to 6.
No, there was no one on the gaming floor at that point. We evacuated very conservatively at a point in time when the emergency services were saying not necessary, and we took a view that it didn't look like the fire was going to go out in the near term. It was likely to get worse, and while we could have a very controlled, no panic situation where our customers could still get in their cars and drive out, that's when we took the decision. It was earlier than that, significantly earlier than that. My guess
what
is.
time was it? Because we do have people that have told us they were still on the gaming floor at 5:45.
Well, I got my team in the room. It was early afternoon from recollection. That's been a bit of a blur, but around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the casino was shut.
So there was no one in there from.
Our staff would have been in there. Obviously, we've had staff and security going through the property, but not customers.
So what time was staff evacuated?
Staff, the bulk of them simultaneously. So anyone servicing customers didn't have to be there because we'd evacuated our customers. And then you obviously had staff trying to manage the situation. You may have seen customers coming and going from the hotel environment to fetch luggage and check out of the hotels. That was happening until a lot later. We evacuated people from the rooms that were in the rooms. And that was later, 5, 6, the air conditioning system had been turned off. The air quality was sufficient to keep them there, and we had nowhere to take them. We then moved them from the hotels to a holding room down in the convention centre, level 5. And at a time when we were getting room accommodation elsewhere, we could then ship them out from there. So you might have had customers coming and going to retrieve stuff and pack up in hotel rooms. That was the case, but in a managed fashion where the air quality was being monitored. And again, we took that decision sooner than we needed to, but with a view it was inevitable, so let's get going with it. And it really was a function of finding alternate accommodation, because we had to take them from somewhere to somewhere off-site. So that process was managed over a period. I'd say the last hotel customers leaving the convention centre would have been around about 7:38 last night. And that was just a function of holding them there, monitoring the air quality. We could give them something to eat, give them something to drink, and they just had to be patient while we found transport more than anything else, actually, once we found accommodation.
Have either of you had any conversations with the Prime Minister, and do you anticipate asking for any assistance from the government, and if so, what form would you see that coming in?
On the conversation, the Prime Minister has been in touch with my chairman, Rob Campbell. As we understand it, she's intending to visit Auckland later today, and we'll engage with her then. There's certainly no engagement around facilitation or funding.
Are all your staff, both of you, are all your staff and subcontractors going to be getting paid through this?
Yeah, certainly from our perspective, let me correct the sort of spurious news that was put out last night. Our staff that were on shift were fully paid. There was never any hesitation or debate even around that. So they were fully paid for shift work. Our salaried staff who have not come into work today, because it's our office buildings as much as our customer-facing precincts, will get paid. No one's taking annual leave as a consequence. So let me correct that. It was actually quite irritating to read.
What about casual contractors who are rostered on, say, for today? Are they still going to be paid even if they don't work?
So rostered staff that were there during the evacuation have been paid, as they should be. People who haven't come to work, who are paid for shift work, will not be, because they're not working, and that's normal.
So they are losing money, though.
But that's a normal situation. If you're casual, you get paid for when you work.
What about subcontractors?
So I can just confirm all of our subcontractors and labourers, we've made sure they're getting paid. Yeah, that's absolutely right. They'll continue.
For how long though, Ross? Obviously, if they're in the shift of works and they're supposed to be doing work in the coming 1 week, 2 weeks, you're going to keep paying them for 3 weeks. How long are you paying them for?
So the answer is we've got to work out and understand where we are and where we're going, and then we'll talk with our subcontractors, because they're not our employees. And the other backdrop I'd say is Auckland's very busy. It's actually our battle has been actually holding people on site. So we make sure that we don't put people in a position where they suffer, and there's a good transition. So that's the approach we're taking. So right now we continue to pay until we work out the timelines where we're going. So we've just got to firstly get back onto the site and understand what the future looks like.
You're not ruling out people losing jobs down the track to an extent.
It's speculation. We just have to get back on the site and work out where we're going. We've got a very large rebuild to do here, so it's a significant project again to do. So it will put workload into the industry. But I just can't speak on the timing yet, because we've got to get back on the site.
Does it have the potential to backfire for you in the sense that if you let people go, or they go because there's no work and no pay, when you
come back to the site to build again, is there a guarantee that you're going to have all the labour and the skill set that you need?
So we'll be very cognizant of that issue and making sure we don't get ourselves in that situation.
It's true the cost plus, and right, you have to keep staff, keep paying them just to keep them there.
I said we'd be cognizant of the situation, and you're looking for specificity that I can't provide until we get back on site and replan the project. And at that point, we'll be able to talk about that quite specifically.
Can we just clarify one point there then? Is there an obligation for those contractors and workers on site to hang around for you for when you are able to start work again?
There's an obligation for us. No,
your destination is on the left.
So the way it works is we're going to have to deal with all of our subcontractors, because clearly some will be immediately re-engaged because there'll be work that they need to do immediately. Others will may have a hiatus through that, and we'll have to work out with them how that works, because ultimately they, like us, have a contractual arrangement with us and us with Sky to finish this project. So what we have to do, like they have to do as a contractor, is then rethink of how we rethink our work, our schedule, our workforce to actually transition from our reality now to the reboot of this project. So we will want to work with them. It's in our interest to work with them to actually make that work. So when we do start, as you're alluding to, we don't find ourselves without the workforce there.
But they would have anticipated, as you have indicated, that they would have been finished up by, the first part of next year. They may have other projects.
They may, but I don't think that'll be the issue you're making, because it's just like us. I mean, we have a workforce, we have multiple projects, and what you're always doing is managing that in an overall sense. So I don't think that's going to be the issue you're feeling it is. That'd be my perspective.
Who's the insurer?
The insurer, their project insurance is taken by Sky.
It's an international company, and I'm not sure from a confidentiality point of view I should disclose that, but we're comfortable with the credibility of the insurer and their ability to meet their obligations.
Have you talked to the insurer yet, Graham?
Yeah, we're busy going through that process and notifying.
Right, does the insurance cover the loss of business if they close the whole Sky City precinct?
That'd be separate insurance, and there is a loss of profits clause in our separate insurance. Perhaps I should stress that it's hopefully in our lives 2 days, and we would hope to be open tomorrow. So yes, there's insurance, but the quantums involved are not life changing.
And what about the other businesses that maybe have not been able to operate, or whose business has been affected as a consequence of the fire?
Yeah, no.
Your insurance?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. And obviously there's been disruption and impact on wider Auckland, and I just don't know the answer to that. So I'd be speculating.
Could the insurance be null and void if it was proven that there was negligence or misconduct, and that would void the terms of the policy by the contractor?
I don't think that's the case at all.
And I'd echo Graham's comments. I think that's not the case.
It's going to be when the fire started, the person who saw it first, what did they see? Was a room on fire? Was there a little tiny fire in the corner?
My understanding is they were going down a stair from the roof, and they looked aside, and what was burning was the bituminous product that was being laid on the roof. So it was a fire on the roof in that bituminous product.
And so you said there's lots of fire controlling equipment around.
Well, what the protocol is, if it's, and I don't know how large it was, but it's actually safety first. So what the protocols we have on the site, you see a fire like that, you don't try and fight it. If it's a little small flame, yeah, but if it's big enough, you actually, the protocol is emergency services evacuate, and that was the decision made.
So the first time it was spotted, it was already too big to use a fire extinguisher.
I don't know.
Right, just for clarification, just the Horizon Hotel, is that an impact on the opening of that? How does that work along a separate schedule?
Well, so far the hotel looks reasonably intact. The fire has moved away from it. It started quite close to it. We'll have to obviously assess the damage when we can. There will be smoke damage. At this stage, it doesn't look like water damage. That hotel is reliant on services to some extent provided from the site that has been damaged. But as it stands, our layman's assessment from the street would be that the hotel looks largely intact and hopefully is.
In terms of where the fire started, can you please run us through the type of equipment that was being used in that area?
Effectively, there's blow torches, heat, applied to the bitumen to do the joint seals. So that's the sort of that's where we think the issue occurred. But again, we have to do the investigation, and I'm really not going to speculate, because as I've been involved in incidents over the years, what you find is the speculation or the word on the street can be very, very wrong, and we have to go through a process that we'll do immediately we get back on the site, and we'll interview people, and we'll get to the facts, and we'll obviously talk about them. And I just don't want to go there because it can be very misleading, and we don't know is the answer.
I understand that, but what you are saying is that blow torches were being used in the area where the fire was found.
My understanding.
And there was no one there at the time?
I don't know.
See someone walk past and found it, right? So
I'm talking about, you asked me, how did the fire get seen? It was observed by someone in the area. That's how it got seen. I don't know any more than that.
Ross, I spoke to a contractor who said there was deadline pressures on this project, and obviously there was pressure on Fletcher's. Do you think that that could have played a part? Obviously, word on the street was that someone was operating some equipment and they left it unattended. Have you had sentiment echoed to you that this was a site that had a great deal of pressure on subbies and Fletcher's workers?
So look, again, speculation, but I'll give you my emphatic answer. That's not the case. Yes, there's deadlines. There's deadlines in any project. We have a very, very firm position across the business that it's safety first, and we will stop projects even if there's deadline pressures if we think there's a safety issue. So I can categorically say that that would not be the environment that was being existed on that site, and I know that for a fact.
Did you then hear about the building being evacuated last week? We heard from a worker that it was similar, there was a fire incident, and we contacted Fletcher. They said there was no such fire. Did you hear about that incident last week? Were you alerted to it?
So what we have through the organisation is when we have we actually look at either safety incidents or what we call high potentials, and when something's seen as a high potential incident, I get notified of all of those. So we have a very, very formal categorisation and escalation process. So we don't just look at what are actual incidents, we look at things that might have been a near miss, and that allows us, the board, myself and senior management, to focus on both accidents as well as near miss accidents. So and it's a very formal process across the business. So and I see those regularly. Well, the reason that one you're talking about, I wasn't, and therefore it was probably the way it was categorised. And you know, because you've got to look at it, when an incident occurs, if it's a small fire that's put out quickly, for instance, it will be seen as not a high potential. So that's how. Therefore, I see everything in the business that's a high potential.
In terms of APEC, do you agree with the Mayor?
As I'll reference what Graham said. We need to get on site and we need to plan out the delays, and actually then with Graham decide where we are in the project. And I really want to do that. We understand the importance of it. So therefore, we need to work together to work out where we are, what we've got to get done, and then.
Realistically, can you make that realistically? Come on, can you make that deadline?
I have nothing more to add to that.
How can we take just two more questions?
Can I ask about your existing contract? In your existing contract, you paid $40 million of liquidated damages to Sky City. Are all bets off now, or are you going to have to continue to pay that kind of level of liquidated damages to the company?
I'll be consistently annoying. I don't talk about contract arrangements on a project-by-project basis. I never have and never will.
What about Graham? Do you expect to be getting some liquidated damages in addition to what you've already received from Fletcher Building?
No. Again, I mean, we have collected as we could and should the liquidated damage provided from the contract to date. I think this is a situation neither party anticipated. There'll be a lot of lawyers figuring that out, and it's not something I'd add anything to.
Do you have an ability to exit this partnership with Fletcher if you wanted to, Graham, bring on another contractor if this is a whole new rebuild?
I don't know the answer to that. But B, we expect and want Fletchers to work alongside us to get this done, so it's not even being discussed.
Okay, Ross, how much does a month or a week's delay normally cost?
Again, I don't talk to that.
And also, share prices have been dropping steadily. How concerned are you about that?
I don't talk about our share price either.